Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents. I am Tracy S. Phillips, and today I am talking to Valerie Biel. Valerie is the author of the acclaimed YA series, The Circle of Nine Books. She teaches about writing and publishing at conferences, libraries, and schools. She's also a freelance publicist assisting authors through her business, Lost Lake Press. With more than 25 years of publicity project management experience, she has established herself as a publicity guru, and she can design and implement the promotions and advertising for authors of every genre. This month, she is releasing two new books, and we're going to talk about her middle grade book, Haven, which is about an 11-year-old girl, and her new YA mystery, Beyond the Cemetery Gate, The Secret Keeper's Daughter. Welcome, Valerie.
Ew, this is so fun. I love talking about books in general, but it's doubly fun to get to talk about your own stuff once in a while.
It is. It's so awesome.
Thanks for
And
the
I mean, I know you know what you're doing and you're publishing these yourself. But it's sort of like, well, go big or go home, right?
Yeah, and part of it is to yes, I do this for other authors all the time, but when it came time to do two books at once, I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing, but you forget what it's like when it's your own book. And then, there's all those other concerns and your insecurities about getting it all just perfectly right. So I've definitely had some trials and tribulations with getting these, ready and out, into the hands of readers shortly. And yeah, so maybe not this to try to publish two books at once, but there were some economies, with doing these things together. I mean, I could list some of those, like, sending emails out to advanced reviewers. I don't really want to bother people like 3 months apart, right? So I say, hey, look, I've got two books coming out. Would you want to review one or both? And then some people did choose to read and review both. And some people just wanted to do the one that they were more drawn to. So there were some economies and just like maybe not bothering people like in close proximity. Say I was, to like put the dates for release a couple like months apart or something. So
Because then you'd have to do it all twice.
I know, and
Yeah.
I just can't even. And really, to be honest, it probably was smart, just like for mental health, to just like crunch time with all this stuff and do it all at once. Because as you mentioned, I work with other authors, and I had to sort of put some things on hiatus. Like I didn't take any new clients for the fall, and basically said to people, look, I will take new clients starting January 1, because we all know this stuff takes a lot of time, and I didn't want to shortchange any new clients. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes sense. So, you've helped so many authors, and including me. Um, it's probably, I mean, has there been anything that has challenged you?
Yeah, there are days where you're like, this shouldn't be this hard, like just dumb stuff that you know how to do. So for instance, I'm using software. I'm formatting my books myself, and I'm glad I'm doing it. And I wanted to learn it, and I gave myself a little extra buffer time to learn, the formatting software. But like a weird thing happened the other day. So I have both hardcover. This is the hardcover of Haven, which is nice because it's middle grade, for little.
Yeah.
And I have paperbacks too, but the trim sizes are different. So I have two different files, right? And actually, technically, I have three different files because I have some interior art. And in the EPUB for the ebook, those can be color, but in the paperback and the hardcover, they're grayscale. So I technically have three different formatted books inside the software. So I make my last corrections. I put my last blurbs into the first 2 pages. I download a new PDF, easy peasy, right? One for the hardcover, one for the paperback, pop them into KDP, that's Kindle Direct Publishing, if you're not familiar with that acronym, and then pop one into Ingram Spark. So, and I'm doing hardcover and paperback on each of those platforms, right? So I probably made an error in not clicking through every page of the PDFs, because I've done this so many times, and the only changes I made were to the first 2 pages. So I go ahead and order 50 of these nice little puppies from Amazon, these author puppies, and it takes Ingram Spark just a little longer to produce your proof, right? So when that one pops into my inbox 3 days after that order got placed, I start clicking through and I'm like, between chapter 14 and 15 in the hardcover, there is a 15-page number page jump. And then the formatting shifted to the paperback margins. Now, I do not know how those two things got combined or corrupted, but I thought, oh, I hope this is just an Ingram Spark weird error, not my original PDF. Oh, but of course not. It was my original PDF. So I am frantically over in the Amazon like portal, and I am like, what? Are you kidding me? Did this order go through? And I was able to cancel the order. And you know, we're talking about 50 copies times the print cost here. So and then I fixed it and re-uploaded it and whatever. But it was a weird glitch. And it's like, that wasn't even really user error, other than I didn't maybe do all my due diligence and clicking through every single page of that PDF to make sure things were consistent and good. Yeah, so things like that, like some odd things. And
Yeah. But it sounds like, you know, sometimes you have that confidence. I've got this. I know I've done this before, you know, and then you skip sometimes things.
And I feel like I kind of owe some of my clients an apology, because I feel like I'm kind of like the tough love like person with them. Like, you've got this, here's your list, just, you know, you can get this done. And, you know, and I do certain things, and then, you know, authors get their list of the things they have to do and whatever. And it's always a different split depending upon what a client wants me to do or wants to do themselves. But now I feel like I probably should say, hey, all you nice clients, yeah, I remember how hard this is, and how, you know, how much work and effort and, you know, just kind of anxiety too, like that you're not putting something out that's got an error in it. I mean, I would have been devastated if anybody had ordered this book and had a weird 15-page, you know, jump in it. Meaning
Yeah.
there was nothing missing. It was just weird. The formatting was weird, right? So
Yeah. Huh. So, you know what, sometimes for me, it was like really refreshing to read these books for younger readers. Because you know, my TBR pile is usually full of like all the dark psychological thrillers, you know, which after a while, you know, maybe needing a little break. But so these were great, and I really want to talk about Haven first, because there was something so very precious about this story, and about the character, about her friendships, and I really enjoyed watching her, you know, grow throughout the book. So, and it's about, so 11-year-old Mardella Houston has her fair share of challenges, though.
yes.
And can you introduce her?
Sure, sure. So, and you know, books start for authors in many different ways. And so this character, Mardella, was in my head, and she was kind of bugging me. And I was really working on another project at the time. And I needed to just, I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to give you a couple chapters. And then I ended up writing the whole book because she kind of wouldn't leave me alone. But Mardella's got a lot of, I guess you would just guilt. She, in the way that preteens make mistakes with things in terms of what they think is their fault or not their fault, or, you know, whatever. She had dialed 911 when there was a situation in her home when her father was hurting her mother. And then, of course, their lives blow up and everything changes and they need to move. And it's just craziness. And of course, she thinks that it's really her fault if she just not dialed 911. So she's dealing with domestic abuse, and that is really a tough topic for this age group. So my main concern as I wrote this is I wanted to write this book for kids of this age, but I knew I needed to treat it very gently. And that's a weird balance. So, I mean, I checked in with people. I had a child psychologist look at it. I've had middle school counselor look at it, just to make sure I was getting, you know, reactions right. But this is an issue that a lot of kids deal with, either directly or indirectly. In kid lit, in children's literature, we talk a lot about mirrors and windows. And mirrors are the stories that reflect back to you, your life, and kind of validate that these experiences that are happening to you are also happening to other people. And a window or a door, if you will, helps kids who don't have the same life experience to see this, you know, situation and maybe have more empathy and sort of grow their empathy for people who have, you know, different difficulties in their life. So it's kind of, you know, why would you write this kind of book? Like, why would you cover this topic? But the point is there's tough stuff out there for all ages. And I think
There is.
I think the reality of it is that if we shy away from these topics for kids, we're not giving them, their due, and really honoring their life experience with putting these situations in literature that is accessible to them. So.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's really important to have that, like you said, the mirror or the door there for kids to be able to see that this really does happen. And, and for kids who maybe feel alone or struggling with that in their lives, to see that, oh my gosh, maybe it happens to other kids too.
Right.
So I think that's really important. Was it hard to write that situation like from an 11-year-old point of view?
Well, and I think it's like that's a really good question for like authors who are writing outside their life experience. Now, I personally have not been in a relationship that was physically abusive. I had a verbally abusive relationship, and I have watched family members deal with other kinds of abuse. And that has really shaped my perspective on how the psychological difficulties where when you love someone, you make a lot of excuses for them and you think that you can make it better often. And really that stuff's just out of your control. So channeling an 11-year-old, I don't know. I love writing kidlit. So apparently I can still remember what it was like to be a kid and I channel that. So I tend to write, middle school kids or characters or young adult characters. But yeah, I mean, it's also like when you ask people like if they write male characters and they're female, like, how do you do that? And I think that, you do have to kind of get yourself into that younger mindset. And there were times that I had to go back and say, ooh, that sounds a little old. That isn't how this would be. And then I had to think through, like, if you are kind of on edge and scared at that age, like, how would you react to people touching you that you didn't know? Like, how would you react if you came out of sort of a volatile trauma situation? Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, so I mean, it definitely was probably more challenging than anything else I've written. So
Yeah. Yeah. I can see why, especially with the subject matter.
mhm.
Um, but it seems like you decided to write about some sensitive topics. And for this, and that's so in that the abuse isn't the only thing in this book that kind of sets it apart. I guess I don't read a lot of middle grade books, but one of the other things that it says in the description is that it also deals with with relationships with
Mhm.
different age groups.
Yes. So this isn't I'm not giving anything away because you realize this in the first chapter. So Mardella and her mom, Mardella is the name of the main character. She and her mom leave while the dad is in jail. They leave and secretly don't leave, their address behind or anything. And they leave and go to a new town 2 states away from where their home had been. And the mom has a new job as the director of a senior living center where they're going to live. So she's plunked down, this 11-year-old preteen's plunked down into this old folks home, basically, right? It smells funny, it's boring, it's all beige and, whatever. And she, throughout the novel, starts to make friends with some of the other generation. And I love having multi-generational, families or found family, really, in stories, because I think that we need to remind kids about, family can come in a lot of different shapes and forms and ages, and that was this real comfort to Mardella as she gets to know these people and understand them more. So
Yeah, no, and I thought that was really cool because I don't feel like that's a thing in a lot of the books for young readers either, is, learning how to talk to older people. So I thought that was really cool. I liked it.
it was fun. And I think too, I'm trying to remember exactly what age I was when I lost my grandparents, but you're at an age where you don't realize that and it's only later that you kind of wished you had them back to ask them questions about when they were kids or whatever. So I tried to put some of that, into this story to sort of, in a way honor my grandparents in a way too.
Yeah. So, then back to the publicity part of this. Um, how do you market these books? Because marketing adult books is a completely different animal than trying to sell, because young people are not your buyers. here.
No, no, for this book, my buyers are school librarians, public librarians, library, the youth librarians, typically, right? And then teachers, perhaps, for their classroom libraries, and also, of course, parents or grandparents. So it's tricky and it's not the easiest thing to do. So really, I was relying on things like making sure I got a review in school library journal, which I did get, and it was a good one. So that's
Nice.
good. So just places where those people might go to look for the next books that they, could purchase for the kids in their lives or the students in their lives. So I will be doing, quite a library promotion effort, and I will reach out to school librarians as well. And to be honest, it's a labor of love. I mean, I would love for it to take off the story, and have it sell just tons of copies. But even if it doesn't, I know that's going to reach, readers who will enjoy it and will gain something from it. So I'm going to do my best. I have a lot of background in this marketing stuff, but this is you're right, tricky age group. So
Right.
we'll see. Right now, it is the #1 category new release on Amazon for its category. And I happened upon that yesterday and I was like, whoa. And I had to like refresh my screen because, you're not sure what you're seeing. So that will also help its visibility. Once you're kind of captured by the Amazon algorithm, that will also help.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think about, and this is just, I don't know, something that, like I remember from being young, was the Scholastic Book Fair would come and bring all those books to your school. And then you'd get a chance to like, I can buy this or whatever, and I always wonder, how is that even a possibility anymore for authors?
Not probably for indie published authors, unless you were to maybe potentially win a really big award. Now, Scholastic Book Fair, I mean, I guess I'd have to go back and look at what they're offering. Scholastic is its own imprint, or its own publishing company. So, sorry, hang tight. I've had my windows open, so I'm getting allergies here. Okay, so Scholastic is its own publishing company. So I will have to go back and look at like their Scholastic Fair stuff. I'm not sure if they only draw from the things that they publish and they don't like broadly grab other books. I would imagine though, there's got to be some really big bestsellers from like Random House, the different imprints that they which certainly want to have in their book fair.
Yeah.
Chances of getting in are probably pretty slim. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
fine.
it has to be really limited, right?
It has to be, because those are really big decision points, right? Because think about how many extra books they have to print for those. And, and then those are like kind of like kits, that they go out and unpack those at the schools and whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
boy, did I love that as a kid.
Right.
Always so excited to come home with that stack of books.
Yes. So you're also releasing, let's get over to the YA book, the Beyond the Cemetery Gate. This was great too. I really like this one as well. And when you're moving into a much darker territory here, it is a murder mystery.
Yes.
And I'll let you like tell our readers a little, or our watchers a little bit about it.
Okay, so I wanted to try to write a mystery, and I thought it was going to be easier than it was. Haha. And so you're someone who writes in this genre, and I'm like,
A little.
I have this idea, I can do this. And I mean, for the most part, it was really enjoyable, but partway through, I realized that I was trying to write a very like linear, normal, standard mystery. And I realized I was missing something. And I turned it then into a suspense novel where the reader knows more than the sleuth, than the main character. So the main character in the story is 16-year-old Chloe. Chloe lives with her dad. They live actually in the cemetery, within the grounds of the cemetery, because the dad is the caretaker of the cemetery. And in the first chapter, Chloe finds him up against one of the statues in the cemetery, dying of a drug overdose. And I mean, it's a murder mystery. He doesn't make it, but nobody else believes her at the time that he was murdered. And so she sets out to solve the murder, find the villain in the story, the killer. And
Right.
yeah, so what I
Because it looks like a drug overdose. And
yeah,
she's
it
like,
looks
my dad doesn't do drugs. What?
And they're like, like, sure. So she starts uncovering, clues. And so then I have these alternating points of view. So it got to be kind of tricky plotting, right? But also really fun when it came together. So I mean, you know that feeling when something that you were trying comes together and you're like, oh, this works. But I have alternating chapters that are from the dad's point of view, which also gives us a different timeline because, of course, he's dead in the first few pages. So we go back 15 years to the dad's timeline moving forward to his death day. And then we also have this like creepy watcher character, and you're not really sure who that is until close to the end. So I love this format. I mean, and I love reading books like this. Like there's a lot of authors in the suspense thriller genres who like to write with these multiple points of view. It's cool. I just didn't know like kind of how hard it was going to be. But once I kind of, fixed it and started to move in that direction, I was like, yes, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how many points of view you have, as long as all of your characters are telling the same story.
Yes. Right. And it was really fun to play with the timeline too.
Yeah.
And that was a necessity if I was going to bring the dad in, because I mean, otherwise you don't start the book in the same spot, right? With
Right.
the dad's death. So yeah, so I had a lot of fun with that. And then like the Watcher chapters, as you know, because you've read it, like they're really short. They're like,
Yeah. Yeah. They're really short.
they're like usually.
But I like that because it was just enough to kind of creep you out and oh, what she's got a stalker too? Oh no.
And who is the stalker? Are they dangerous?
Right.
Are they like, could they be helpful? Who knows?
Right. Exactly. And she's already been through like a lot before this story. She's got a pretty incredible backstory as well.
She does. She does. So we're exposed to that initially as she's waiting. The dad's been brought in, via ambulance in the first chapter, second chapter, and she's in the area near where he's being, worked on in the hospital. And she looks down and she realizes she's still wearing just her PJs and her legs are exposed. And she has terrible burn scars from when she was a toddler. And there was a terrible house fire that also killed her mother. And so she has been, missing her mom all these years, and she's got these scars, which she tends to try to cover up. She's a runner. She does cross country and track and stuff. So she's always wearing like the leggings underneath like the uniforms and stuff. So she's sensitive about her scars. And yeah, so her backstory is that of losing her mom as a toddler and having these terrible scars. And and I can't even remember exactly what the genesis was for that, but it just seemed to fit in. I really don't remember what day I decided on her backstory when I was writing this. So
I mean, sometimes our characters just kind of talk to us that way and they're like, but I've done this. See? And then you're like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense.
And I think that's fun too. Like what people will talk about, how much do you plot? Whatever. I plot enough because it's hard, I think, to write a mystery without plotting something, but you want to leave some room for like that kind of magic, right? Where things kind of pop in. And sometimes, characters surprise the heck out of you. And you're like, of course this is what's happening, right? Oh, of course you did that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Story.
So yeah. And Chloe does a lot of things wrong in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's 16 and she thinks she doesn't think she's invincible so much as she thinks that there's no way she can ally with anyone really much else in the community to help her solve her dad's murder. And she's just focused on that. And, of course, the police chief is like, well, you're 16. Where are we going to put you? You need to live with somebody. We can't take you back to this house in the cemetery. So they're going to plunk her down with some, friends of like the parents of, a home with one of her girlfriends, one of her teammates. And Chloe does something really naughty. And this happens, early in the book, but she pretends that the person who will be her guardian, which is her aunt, is back. And she's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's flying solo and trying to pretend to be her aunt on the phone. And there's all kinds of crazy things that go down.
Do you think like like what 16-year-old do you know who is not rebellious in a way? You know, I feel like kids are going to love that about her, that
Yes.
look what she's doing on her own. I would
Well,
totally do that.
and she's just like, okay, so I can make this work. But then she's got those moments where she's alone and she's back in the house in the cemetery and it's dark and it's late. And she's like oh, I forgot to lock the gate, but she's scared to go out and lock the gate, but she runs out and locks the gate quick. And that feeling where you feel like someone's watching you and you're scared. And so, I mean, I think there's some really relatable things where kids, and you're on, when you're a teenager, you're on the cusp of adulthood and you make some really great decisions and you have some autonomy to do certain things, but
Yeah.
certainly not the same, the autonomy that Chloe's claiming. And
Yeah.
so there's that push back and forth, like where, you're still, there's still a lot of things that you're not ready for. And clearly no one's ready to try to solve a murder on their own. So.
Right. And she's also kind of she's kind of rude to the officer who's investigating.
She is, but they don't believe her and they think they won't listen to her. And her dad is like, she's trying to explain to them this just wouldn't be like the thing that happened to her dad. Like her dad didn't use drugs. And because in a way
Right.
they're so close because there's no other family around. It's just been the two of them for years and years. She's protective really of his memory. And she's frustrated, but yeah, she's really mean to that poor police chief, isn't she?
He's so kind with her in a way that's just sort of like, you know, she doesn't
And
know what she's saying.
no, and
She's
there's things
just a
he can't,
kid.
yeah, there's things he can't tell her.
Right. Well, absolutely.
And so you don't know if, does he really believe that Chloe's dad was murdered, or is he just,
Or is he really
oh,
investigating?
yeah, or, is he corrupt in some way? I mean, you don't know what's going on exactly, but as a 16-year-old, he only can give her the information he's allowed really to give her. The only things that are
Right.
the public facing police reports and things. So
Yeah, exactly. She does enlist the help of a friend.
she,
And I really liked Jarvis. He, is kind of the rebel of the class,
he is, and
but a quiet rebel.
he's quiet. He's fairly new to school. This is his first year at this particular school. And eventually I give, we reveal his hard backstory as well later in the book. And he's quiet and you don't know why he's the way he is until maybe a little bit later.
Right.
Super smart. And he's got the memory where you remember everything you've seen like on a page and stuff, so it's like a photographic memory. And
Yeah.
that's very helpful. And so he watches, he's a good observer of behavior and he's watching things and he realizes she's in over her head, maybe in a little too far and might need a little help. So,
He's a good reality check for her,
mhm,
but he's
mhm.
also helpful and he tries to keep her safe as well. Um, so it's really good that she has some support.
Right. And he keeps her safe to his own detriment.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give that away, but some
Yeah.
things happen that if he hadn't been trying to help Chloe in the way he was helping her, some bad things wouldn't have happened to him
Right.
necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I hear you have plans for both books to become series.
Well, yes. Okay. So first of all, I couldn't say goodbye to Chloe. I love Chloe, and we've got to follow this whole Chloe Jarvis relationship thing, whatever. So Chloe's aunt is Maggie. Now, Maggie doesn't have a big role in this book. She is off on assignment. She is a war correspondent, and she is out she's actually in Turkey during the majority of this book. Chloe doesn't know it. All she's told by the producer is she's not unavailable. And, she's basically like undercover. We cannot talk to her right now. So like you're on your own for 3 weeks, kid.
Yeah. And she doesn't even know that her brother died.
No, no. And then Chloe's cover gets blown because her aunt appears on, TV eventually,
Yeah.
international reporting and like, oh, oops. And so Maggie, we get a little flavor of Maggie near the end. But these are going to be the Chloe and Maggie mysteries. And so now this one, the subtitle is The Secret Keeper's Daughter. The next book, we're going to get more Maggie. I mean, Chloe's going to be in the book throughout, not like Maggie, making just that appearance near the end. And the second book subtitle will be The Secret Keeper's Sister, because of course the secret keeper is Dean, the dad. And so we're going to get more of that. But for people who are writing series and you're looking at like sort of, the mechanics of it. Now, technically, these are going to both, in a way, at least this one, kind of more like a prequel. But when you do that and then you start numbering the books after that, you sort of orphan that first book. So I am calling them all Chloe and Maggie mysteries. And, if you're mad at me that Maggie is not front and center in this book, then just hold on. You'll get a second book and it'll all be fine. But I know better than.
Will the next one be YA too?
So these are going to cross over into adult. So, because we're going to have this teen protagonist that teams up with her aunt, who's a grown up, and they're going to work together on some investigations in solving some mysteries that mostly have to deal with things that Maggie will be investigating as she switches from being a wartime correspondent to an investigative reporter back in the States. So
cool. I feel like most adults really like reading younger characters. It reminds we were all young at one point. I mean, most of us.
Yes. I mean, I guess some of us could have been old souls and we're just always, like an old person in a young person's body.
But, it taps into something that is, that reminds us of when we were younger, or, something maybe we haven't thought about in a while. And I think it's always just fun to read those characters.
I think so too. And that's maybe why I gravitate to it. There's a lot of hopefulness at that jumping off point, into adulthood. Plus when you have a character who's YA, who's a teenager, you give them more latitude for potentially bad decision-making too. But then if you've got investigative reporter situations, there's going to be times when maybe Maggie needs to have someone younger, in a location that's going to be helpful to her where she can't go because she's too recognizable. So I've got so many ideas, and then I just couldn't say goodbye. So
that's awesome. Well, I can't wait.
I just wish there was more time to write. I just wish I could jump right in, but now I'm in like marketing mode. Yeah.
Right.
And then you asked about series for Haven. So This is more of a possibility, but not for sure. So there's another young character in this book who's a little older than Mardella, and her name is Ginger. And Ginger's got an interesting backstory too. She is living with the aunt who happens to be the person who handles all the meals at this senior living center. And so her dad is off and he's working in the North Dakota, like oil fields and stuff. And he's trying to earn money for them so he can come back. And so she's got a little bit of a backstory. And throughout Haven, we learn a lot more about her as she's very goth or emo, and very like into like the dark makeup and clothes at the beginning of the book. And through like the whole book, then her life changes too with her relationship with Mardella. And she sort of, comes out from behind a lot of the dark clothes that have cloaked her for so long. So I really would love to do a Ginger story. And then there's two boys in the story that are the grandsons of one of the older residents. And I just think it would be really fun to follow them along. And I don't want to give it away, but I have kind of a sad storyline that I want for their story, for their book, but ultimately hopeful. So I guess maybe I don't know. I guess I like to write dark stuff that is ultimately hopeful at the end.
I mean, I think that's why we gravitate to, I don't know, darker story. I mean, that's why I read them too, because there's always somewhat of a happy ending, if not just happily for now. It gives, what was I reading recently that, what we read because we recognize something in it and it teaches us something about our experiences. And that's what we're usually drawn to reading. And so if we're drawn to reading or writing dark stuff, I feel like we have to, it's because we want to see the light at the other side.
I think so too. I mean, and there's a reason why for instance, standard romance novels fly off the shelves. And then when you get your voracious readers, what do they call them? Whale readers, the ones that'll read every single thing of some author or whatever, and they just keep reading. So like romance is one of those genres that, people might read 5, 6 books a week. I mean, they read one, every night or something like that.
Right.
So, and those are like, a standard romance, like format is happily ever after or happily ever after for now. And,
Mhm.
and I think that there's nothing wrong with us enjoying certain tropes, there's certain types of TV shows I'm drawn to, certain, so whatever form story takes, there's certain kinds of stories that I just like better than others.
Right.
So yeah, I guess,
It's true for all of us.
yeah.
Yeah.
And thank God, because otherwise we wouldn't have our readers, right?
We wouldn't have such a variety,
Exactly. There's always going to be an audience for what you're writing. I mean, depend upon how narrow your niche is or whatever. But I think that some of these are really universal themes that appeal to a broad audience. So
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any marketing tips or secrets for authors who write for younger audiences that you could share?
well, let's see. I mean, we talked a little bit about that middle grade audience being tricky. Now, young adult audience on up, they're buying their own books, and a lot of adults read down, like you talked about. So I don't have a lot of trouble finding that YA audience. And I have this other series that's YA, and up. And I have a lot of readers who are, more my age that like that series. So I think that it's across the board, there are a lot of the tips and tricks really are. I see a lot of authors really focusing on in-person events when their books come out, and those are fun, and those are mostly for fun, because unless you are at some major event, you are going to just sell a few copies, maybe at your local bookstore. That's nice. Support your local bookstore. Go do those events. But you're going to be better off doing digital marketing where you can find the right audience for your books, where you can target Facebook ads or target your Amazon ads to the people who read your book. So say you're at a Barnes and Noble on a Saturday morning, and you got your little table set up and you're so excited because you're at Barnes and Noble. Well, every maybe 10th person who walks through might stop or even like what you wrote. I mean, it's just such a broader type of event, when you're out in public like that. So if you can, leverage your digital stuff, your online stuff, you can more easily focus on the people who already have identified as lovers of suspense or mystery or whatever. So you can target your ads.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice. I feel like that's really great advice. So where can we find your books?
Everywhere. So you can get them on Amazon. You can buy signed copies through my website if you want signed copies. But Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Powell's, like they're basically everywhere in print. Now, ebook, I am exclusive to Kindle. So if you want to read an ebook, you have to go over to Kindle. And like I said before, the interesting thing about the Haven ebook is that it's got the color illustrations. And I'll do one reveal. There's 8 illustrations in here. Otherwise, I'm going to make you all buy the
So
book.
good too. They are so cute. She did such a great job.
So I'll show you that one.
Oh,
So that's Mrs. Loftus, who tends to wear this really bright fuchsia velour, like tracksuit. Anyway, so the color version of this image is really fun. But yeah, I'm delighted with the illustrations in here. So that was a nice partnership that I found a really cool illustrator who was willing to get creative for me. So
yeah. Oh, fun. And where can readers or writers find more information about you?
So you can go to my author services site, losslakepress.com, or you can go over to valeriebiel.com and you can connect in that way. So if it's easier to remember valeriebiel.com, you can always get the portal into my author services that way. Or you can just email me. And, if you're looking for help with, some marketing or promotional thing, I edit books as well, which is fun for me to work with people in the developmental stage of their work. So that's the best thing. And as of today, I have a brand new valeriebiel.com website. Ooh. So I've been doing so much housekeeping. It's insane.
Thank you so much for chatting with me today. and for
You.
being on Blackbird Writers.
Yes, you can't see it, but I wore my t-shirt today.
But this has been a great talk and really good luck with your launches,
Thank
both
you.
of them. And wishing you the very best.
Thanks for the opportunity. And it's so much fun to be a part of the Blackbird Writers. You guys are awesome, great support. So thanks for doing these sort of videos. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Bye.